Hey, everybody. This is not everybody yet. My name is Jonathan Watson, and I'm waiting for John Trent from Bounding Into Comics and John Carswell from the Tolkien Road. I know John is doing a live stream right now for his members, but he'll be jumping in. But I think first we have to remember why we're here. Because this is what we have, and or this is what we got, and this is what we're gonna get. We're gonna get young Shelob in the Rings of Power, and this was a fun AI art generated spider that I created the other night. I was sort of sitting here, I'm like, man, this young Shelob. Oh, hey! I should see what our new upcoming, forthcoming future masters of the Earth will be doing when they think about young Shelob, and this is what I got. Obviously, this is a riff on young Sheldon, the show that's it's from The Big Bang Theory, right? That character, and it was a fun little thing that I did. Kind of took off. I know it was Nerdotics featured it on their one of their live streams. They thought it was pretty great too. So that's been a lot of fun to have that here. But man, we've got let me bring up the article on Bounding Into Comics that talks about young Shelob, and it's just a member berry. Hey, 1 second, John Trent.
Hello.
Welcome. Good to see you. I know
Hey.
you're probably been talked out after being on your membership stream, and now you're jumping into other things. Glad to have you here.
It's always good to be here.
Thanks. I have.
Is it just us?
It's just us. John's actually going to be joining us. He's a little bit late, but he said he'll show up.
Okay.
We'll see. I found out May is a hard month for a lot of people. You got graduations, you've got like vacations are getting started. The kids stuff, like it comes down. So last week was incredibly hard. Nobody could show up, and obviously we got to build up enough people.
Yeah, I couldn't.
To come. Yeah, you can make it. John couldn't make it. Steve's on vacation. Like Michael, who does the podcast with me, his daughter is graduating from college, so he's driving all the way out to he's like a 12-hour drive today. But he'll be here too. And next week we're getting a couple other folks. In fact, I'm really excited. We're getting Austin Freeman, who we interviewed, who wrote the book Tolkien Dogmatics, which is about Tolkien and theology and dives deep into it. We interviewed him about a month and a half ago, I think it was. Babylon Bee also interviewed him. So he'll be here. And I've got another person coming in who I've known for a long time, who's a huge Tolkien fan, who knows his Tolkien, who knows his like literature, who really theoretically strong in almost everything, and so he'll be a great addition.
Someone that Rings of Power would never hire.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Which you missed. Well, here, let me bring it up here. You missed this, of course, right? Did you see that earlier?
Is this real?
No,
Did you make this?
I made this in mid-journey. It was a lot of fun. I just couldn't help myself. It was a couple days late after the news broke, but I'm like, this is just too. It's too on the money, too on the nose.
It's pretty
right?
good.
Just do it. So.
It's missing two legs. She's missing two legs.
I know, but the Rings of Power never gets anything right. So why start with 8 legs when you can just have 6? Oh man. So I wanted to bring up what so I had your article up here about how the Rings of Power is going to be member burying us once again with things that don't matter. And I don't know. I just want
these guys have been pretty accurate. The Fellowship people, they got a lot of the season 1 stuff with the scoops. Obviously, they actually seemingly like the show, but I'm not sure if they're being paid to like the show. But they did get like a lot of their scoops right. Like they had Adar correct. Like they had him. They were the first to have him and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I'm afraid here's what they're going to do. They're going to do the Disneyfication of villains now in this here, right? Because kind of what they had to do with Halbrand and even Adar. They had to make him more. You have to like him a little bit, right? You can't have just bad guys. Evil can't be evil for evil's sake. They've got to have some sort of daddy issues, mommy issues, hard times.
Right.
Growing up, they were bullied, something like that. So is this going to be like Sauron going through and finding Shelob and then raising her up to be this evil villain that is there helping him, or is it going to be because if we go back all the way to the Silmarillion, we'll see that Sauron was frightened by Ungoliant, like the progenitor of Shelob,
right?
And so, not Sauron, sorry, Morgoth was frightened by Ungoliant, who sucked the light of the trees from Valinor out, and to have like if they anyway. I don't know. There's so many options here, and they're all bad. I can't think of anything good that they'll do.
I'm interested
with this.
So this was something when I was like doing a little bit of research for this, and I was going back to Two Towers, Tolkien's the actual book. Is she already in Mordor, or is she or does she travel there? Because it's a little confusing the way Tolkien writes it. I could see it going kind of both ways.
I'm glad you asked. Sorry for the big wide open screen here, but I'll show you where she's supposed to be. So this is from Beleriand. This is the place. This is the place that was destroyed at the end of the First Age with Morgoth, and then Sauron survived and moved over here. And all this land is underwater now. So if you saw this here, right, these mountains here, like over here, is where they actually were cured in, and everybody sets sail, like right over here. Here's Nograd, is Belagos. Anyway, so this area right here, if I zoom in a little bit, right there, Arid Gorgoroth, the Mountains of Terror. This is where the progenitors of Ungoliant lived. That's why they're called the Mountains of Terror. And so somehow she made it over from here over all the way to Mordor, which isn't in this map here, because it's the original First Age Beleriand map. So did you get there? There's nobody actually wrote. Tolkien actually, as far as I know, unless it's somewhere deep in the histories of Middle Earth, he never wrote like how Shelob actually got there. And I see Michael in the chat, so maybe he'll tell us, because he has everything committed to memory. He's probably on the road right now. So I don't think like I think she should just be there, unless he guides her there from somewhere, which could be a thing too.
Well, we know in Rings of Power, Mordor is created instead of already being there.
That's true. So she can't be there. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So she comes from somewhere. So it's going to be the journey. It's going to be like the Fellowship of Mordor, going to with Sauron and Ungoliant and maybe Adar. We can have them all have a moment and chum it up and become good friends, so that he can have her settle in Cirith Ungol and torment all those orcs that he finds are the bad boys, the ones that he needs to spank a little bit.
Yeah.
Otherwise his kill.
He just doesn't care about.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. It's just I'm tired of the member berries.
See, it says right there how Shelob came there, flying from ruin, no telltales. There we go. No telltales.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
Told us.
But she was there before Sauron, by the way. So she got there like the night before, because Mordor was just created.
Yeah.
So on his trip to Mordor, he was, oh my gosh, it was just so sad. It's so sad. But it gives us an opportunity to just hate watch again.
They thought they were so cool with the way they shot that, with like zooming in on his eye. Thought they were so witty with that.
The Eye of Sauron, and then how like the word I don't remember what it was. The Southlands washes away and it becomes Mordor. It burns away and becomes the word Mordor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so ham-fisted.
Michael says that confirmed that Tolkien never says how Shelob traveled the 3,000 miles to Mordor.
I mean, you can know Smaug had his own. He got into the Lonely Mountain from somewhere else, because he's the dragon. So from the Blue Mountains, maybe, was that it? I'm not too excited about that, but it is one of those things. Like you mentioned the Fellowship of Fans, right? They do get their scoops right, and there are a lot of people who still like it. And there was this one article, and hey, just a shout out to anybody who's watching. Like if you're watching, you can, and you want us to see your questions or comments, throw us a super chat, and we'll make sure that we feature it. We'll try and keep an eye on it too, since it's really just me and John looking at it. It's going to be a little tougher right now, but there was. Let me get the URL for this article. This is probably the most ridiculous article. But that's not the one. If I actually hit Command V, that would be helpful. This article on Looper.
Oh, of course, Looper.
I know. But the reasoning. So we have to go through these reasons, because it's sort of like just give it a chance. I mean, they had all these issues, but just give it a chance, please. So the article, of course, is I've read Lord of the Rings dozens of times, and unhappy Tolkien fans should give the Rings of Power a second chance. So, right, blah blah blah, talks about how he loves it so much that he's okay with the big changes in the Rings of Power, and he covered it. and it became, obviously, again, they point out that for some reason, if you really hate it, then it's because of your political leanings. There's no other reason that you would actually dislike it, because J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have created something truly special. Like, oh, it is special, perhaps not in the way they mean, but special. And so what are the reasons that they give for this thing? It's like, guys, the pandemic, it sucked because, they were shut down and time causes things to be bad or something like that. So they literally go through this and say, they had to stop for 4 months.
Created during the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, maybe taking a step back for a little while would be a good thing for them to actually look at it with a critical eye, rather than the blasting through it like Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, where he was forced to finish it incredibly quickly. But he said, right, the thing is, season 1 of The Rings of Power dealt with more than just the ripple effect of the pandemic. It took the initial brunt of the devastating event right on the chin. Oh, poor Rings of Power. It's like it's pity. Out of pity liking? What do you call that? It's pity love. It's like, I love you because you're so pitiable. Oh, so sorry you took it right on the chin.
Sounds like excuses for Shang-Chi. Only making $400 million or whatever.
Oh yeah, right. And they're like, it had a $900 million budget. If it couldn't figure out what to do during the pandemic, then they've got deeper issues than just time off in here.
Clearly.
Yeah. All the time.
I mean, they still included the scene about the elves are coming to steal your jobs.
Oh my gosh.
This
and
one elf has arrived on our shores. Our jobs are at stake.
No, come.
These immortals are going to steal all our jobs.
Yeah. Title 42 and Numenor is coming down, and all the elves are going to be busting down the doors because this is where they want to live. But of course, I think we also have to bring up this image right here of what happened.
Oh, the opening scene, right?
The opening scene of like rocks look down, ships look up. That's the difference. This is, we also put this on our podcast. One of the artists in our Discord chat put this up, and I was like, oh, dude, this is perfect. It's like,
what about the rocks on the top of the mountain?
Yeah.
Guess they don't
they don't have to do anything. They just kind of sit there and die. Yeah. Those poor rocks that like the ones on the like, and what about the poor rocks that are, on the seashore? Like they're always kind of stuck in this no man's land. They can't ever really like look up to like stay afloat because the waves will wash over. Then the tide comes in, the tide goes out. They never float. They don't get the chance. Man. So anyway, yeah. So that was their first reason. And here's their other reason. It's like the acting was great. It was amazing. If you couldn't feel the emotion in Galadriel, other than angst and simulated anger, then you weren't watching.
We used the clip of her taking her sword and like tapping the dude's butt. As part of like our Black Pill stream like opening clip, which is like a montage of just like the worst like scenes from like the past 3 or 4 years.
And that whole scene, it's got a like I saw whose was it? Night's Watch, Shadiversity. He did a whole breakdown of that entire battle scene about how bad it really was, and how like the advice she's giving them is very poor, and like none of it actually makes sense, and the whole scene was bad. And what's funny is, so in our podcast we're going through a Calibeth, which is of the Second Age,
yes,
in the Silmarillion.
Excellent.
And and one of the points it makes, like they can't, like we talked about how
didn't read it all.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's like a 45-minute read. Don't worry, the Rings of Power guys
they didn't read.
Oh, they didn't read it all. No, and I made that point. It's like a 45-minute read, and they couldn't even like take the time to figure it out. And it's obvious. Like we were talking about, and Michael was like, "Look, the entire point of the Numenorians is that they want to avoid death. Like there's no other reason for their downfall. It's just that they want to avoid death." And
Tolkien is explicit in the Alcobeth, and he's also explicit in letter 114, where he like it's like a proto Alcobeth that he goes into extreme detail on.
Yeah, and he has the whole Alcobeth where he talks about that, where this is debate with Finrod and a human woman and talking about life and death. But it's yeah. Anyway. So with Numenors they don't get that, and then here's the other thing they don't get. I don't have the shot of here of of Galadriel training the recruits, right? The grand army of Numenor of like 12 people. And Numenorians are unnaturally tall. They're supposed to be taller than normal humans on the show. Right? They're not giants, but they're supposed to be stately and rather imposing. Everybody there is either shorter than Galadriel or just a little bit taller. And I'm just like, they haven't set up the Numenorians to be any different than anybody else. I mean, this is the height of humanity on Earth. And they can't even get that right. So, and the acting was one of the worst parts of it. Now the acting, sure, they rely on bad writing too. So, you can't blame it all on them. And some of the actors were fine. I thought Gil-galad was horrible. I thought he was just so wooden and boring. And then he's the king with the golden crown and crest. Celebrimbor was silly. I think the guy who played Elrond could have been okay, but he was just so bad. The dwarves were still probably the best. The dwarves, I think, were acted the best as characters.
The three dwarves that we saw.
The king and Durin,
and his wife.
And Disa. Leggy Disa. So that was the second reason. The third reason says, guys, writing like Tolkien is hard. Only Tolkien can write like Tolkien. So, give him credit. It's like, just grade him on a curve. That's what we ought to do.
Except, his writing is there. You could have used it.
I know. I know. It's like, do you know how much he wrote? Because Christopher Tolkien went through everything and gave us a lot of stuff. Like it's not that hard to look at it all. And the other thing is Peter Jackson had to write a bunch of extra stuff. And it all flows really well and sounds like Tolkien. Granted, there's some times where maybe it doesn't, and some of the comedy falls a little flat for me, at least. But it's not bad. It's not like, oh, guys, I know it's hard. So I know you said the word okay and dude once. They didn't say dude, but don't give them this curve. And so this entire article, you can see already, like they're saying, like, guys, just you're judging them too harshly. It's okay. Let's feel sorry for them and rate them on that. And I feel like so many of the fans who like this show feel the same way.
So it's nothing about the actual quality of the show.
It's nothing about the
better than what you thought.
No, like even I think the next reason too. So if we go down here, right, they're like Tolkien is hard. Oh, it's archaic the way he writes, and he spent time reading Beowulf and the Kalevala. Not that they had some extra time in the pandemic to actually go back and read those if they wanted to, the writers, but they couldn't be bothered to spend that time on there. And the other one, it was fighting an uphill battle. Come on. It was hard to write with other people, I guess, because, they were being judged on the Rings of Power trilogy.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy, yeah.
No, sorry, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah. So, all this reasoning.
Well, of course you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged. Well, Jackson was judged by Tolkien's books.
Yeah.
So you're still being judged by the books too. So, okay.
And then he
usually how adaptations are judged, right? Like Dune isn't just being judged. Dune is being judged based on the sci-fi miniseries, the original 1984 film, and then obviously just
David Lynch's.
That's how you judge things when you're doing an adaptation. You judge on previous adaptations and the actual source material. Like that's not that's what you do.
No, there's nothing that says like we're going to judge it against She-Hulk. Like that's not. We don't know. And what's funny is right here too. The more I personally think they did a remarkable job mirroring the spoken dialogue in the Word, the more he watches it. Right? He thinks that the spoken dialogue is good, even though before he said, "Hey man, writing for like Tolkien is hard." So it contradicts himself. This is a standard Looper style article. And then the last reason they give, of course, is disconnect from the White Rose and embrace it.
It's actually a pitch for Hollywood writing Hollywood script. They contradict themselves within like the same sentence
all the time,
or the next sentence.
Yeah,
you'd be surprised how often this happens. It happens like they'll say one thing and then literally the next sentence, or maybe like two sentences later, they're saying something that completely contradicts what they had just said.
Yeah, that's why they can't plot anymore, because they don't even like listen to themselves. I mean, I remember going through school and like, hey, you're changing tenses here in the next sentence. I'm like, what? And then like eventually you start realizing, oh yeah, I can't go like present tense, past tense right away. And it's like that on a macro level, because they never had to take the time to actually probably think about that when they were writing in grade school or high school.
I'll be honest, I do that sometimes myself, like especially when I'm like quoting people. So I'll be like, he said, and then the next thing I'll be like, he says, and I'm like, no, I gotta fix that.
Yeah, but you know what? You're not writing a script for a $900 million TV show. And the volume of what you write is probably far beyond what they put out. Like the volume that you put out in a month is a little bit more than what they probably put out in a few years. Yeah.
I don't know. I probably write more than them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I mean.
Okay.
You write probably way more than they do in a month than they do in a few years.
Yeah.
For sure. And then lastly, like this whole idea that you have to brace it for what it is, not what you want it to be. But the thing is, what I want it to be is something Tolkien wrote, not the book Tolkien never wrote, which is, of course, what J.D.
That's also what they said they were going to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
see again, right there, they said that they went back to the book, and then they also on the same time they're saying like, oh, we're writing the novel that Tolkien never wrote. So it's like, well, which is it? Yeah. Which is it? No. Did you go back to the book, or are you writing the book that they never wrote?
They're contradicting themselves in like probably the same interview right there too. It's because all they know. It's like listening to Kamala Harris. All she knows is like to let it flow out of your brain without any filter at all. Just let it all kind of like seep out, and maybe something will make sense sometimes. And that's probably pretty much all that happens.
And CNN will clip it and make it look good.
Yeah, here we go. And this is the constant thing, right? They're saying that if you don't like the Rings of Power, if you vent harsh criticism at it, that's because you formed judgment before you even saw it. I'm like, the very first thing that I saw, one, I was excited about it when they announced it years ago. Two, when they released that picture of the two trees, that was amazing. That looked so good.
Yeah.
They lost everybody, not even necessarily because of the trailer, but they lost the big fans. I mean, obviously there were some issues in the trailer, but they lost everybody too when they had those super fans come out. And that like struck a chord with those who love Tolkien. And it was like, all that they were talking about was diversity, represention, and making sure the right people are heard. That's right. That's right. Over on the side, and those when they went to a castle, they brought the super fans to the castle, and the guy was taking a leak off to the side. I should have had that up.
I think the Vanity Fair article did a ton of damage too, because they used it to attack fans as racists. They brought in that like chick from instantly. They brought in the chick from like that Edinburgh University or whatever, and as like an expert.
Yeah.
And she was basically condemning people who were criticizing the casting as racists. So I think that was like and that was like their first big PR thing, because that was like February. When did this come out last
February
year?
2022.
Yeah. So February 2022 was the Vanity Fair article, and that's when they said that they were going to write the book that Tolkien never wrote, and then they had like the expert come in and say people were racist. And I was like, yep, these people are going to war, so let's go.
So do you think they do that? Like there's a theory
100%.
that they do that in order to mitigate the negative reviews it's going to get. And, so that, they can immediately say like, well, you don't like it because you're racist, instead of actually dealing with the issue that it's got some serious plotting problems and dialogue problems and everything else.
I think that was a tactic that was initially used to do that, but I think now, like, I don't think that works. I don't think people like really care if you say that anymore. And it's like, sure, it still sucks. Like, what are you gonna? Like,
I would be surprised. Yeah, this is the one where they say all those crazy things and everything came out, and there's that teaser trailer.
Yeah,
that
this was like their first big PR push.
Well, and they leaned in. If they would have leaned into the things that we liked rather than
and then we got this too.
Didn't like, yeah. The explosion behind me. I don't even remember. Oh, this is her looking at the volcano, and we didn't even know at this point that was actually worse than what we saw here.
Yeah,
it was like
pretty bad.
Oh, so the explosion destroys all the homes, destroys the animals, destroys all the trees, but every human and elf is left standing. That's a thing. That's what happens when it's a water volcano.
Except for what's her name is blinded.
Oh, Muriel. Yeah, Muriel. And they're like, oh, that's because there was like wood, like shards of wood, like something exploded near her. I don't even know. I didn't even catch that the first time I watched that. Dan had to explain that to me, and he's like, yeah, didn't like she get something? I'm like, I don't know. Do I care?
I just assumed I just assumed she got like fire in her face or something.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, so that's what it is. But that's also what's coming up, and I think right, we see that also now they're the same. I don't know, the same. What do we call it? The same stock of people are pushing forward now. Of course, with like everything's coming out now to promote the second season, and it feels coordinated. It feels like there's
this
somebody
is what they
there
were
in the
arguing
back.
before, and it was clearly doesn't work.
No,
Because they literally they couldn't even get the rings right. They couldn't even get the rings right.
no, they couldn't get the order right. It's not that hard, and the whole thing is called the Rings of Power, and the rings appeared only in the last episode for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and they couldn't get that right. They couldn't move forward into actually like understanding totally. And it doesn't take that much. Like I point this out again, like in our podcast, reading the Akalabeth takes 45 minutes, and reading of the Rings of Power in the Second Age takes another maybe hour. So you could read it 5-6 times in one day if you really wanted to, and really get a good feeling for it. Maybe listen to it on an audiobook. Right? It's not that bad, but they keep making excuses for the problems. And these are not the kinds of articles that you would see for Game of Thrones or what's the recent one, House of the Dragon. Right? They're not making excuses for the reasons why some people disliked it. They feel like they have to keep making excuses. And granted, that's not based on anything that's been written already, but they come at it because it's so easy to fight against this argument, to counter this argument with the reasons why it's a bad thing, and so they keep writing these articles. They keep writing these articles like this one too. Like you got to keep liking it for what it is. Like don't worry, Galadriel's story. It wasn't correct.
Rings of Power villain story.
Yeah. Right. They're promoting that you didn't get the whole story, and somehow now, she's a bad guy. I guess. Like she's tempted.
Is this Screen Rant? Who is this?
Yeah, Screen Rant. So
they're owned by the same company, CBR and Screen Rant.
Really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Of course. Do they share the articles then too? Do they share the writers who just are like told clickbait this man?
I don't know, maybe, but they clearly share the same ideals.
Maybe they mean the villain arc as in, and I'll be honest, I skimmed this, so I barely remember this article right now, but the villain arc will mean that, her dalliances with the villains. So will she?
No, they're saying they said she's going to continue to be tempted. I don't know.
Yeah. By who?
Apparently
Because
Sauron.
Is Sauron going to come back as now Anatar, and she's going to get confused again. They're like, who's this other really attractive young man? I could go after him. He looks
while
good.
She has the Ring of Power because she's supposed to have her ring. She said she was going to have her ring in the second season.
Right. Yeah, they should.
Did.
Yeah. Well, she has the Ring of Power, and then she's near. Oh, jeez. They're going to totally and completely change the way that the rings are made, I'm sure. I bet Galadriel will probably get involved in helping Sauron somehow make the One Ring, and so that will make her her denial of the ring in the Fellowship of the Ring, where she says, "I passed the test, now I will go into the West and diminish and remain Galadriel." That will make it that much more effective because she actually had her own essence. She poured herself into the One Ring. We didn't know that because we wrote the book Tolkien never wrote, but we didn't know that. So now we do that. And again, it's the whole it's what Hollywood does. It's what books do now, right? They merge the good and the bad in the hopes that it lends it depth, but all it does, I think, it lends it confusion, right? You can create depth without trying to make characters likable, even though they're evil. But you can also make characters that are good and they're just good. They don't have to have like a dark side that they're hiding.
They never do that anymore.
They never do what?
For a reason.
Oh.
They never make characters good just for be good.
So
anymore.
Like you're way more into like the zeitgeist of all of this here. What is the reason then that they would give for that?
Oh, I think it's totally like a psyop to try and make people think that there is no good and evil, and it's just everything is gray, and trying to like convince you that there isn't things that are like objectively wrong, and there aren't things that are, and that there aren't things that are objectively good. That's 100% what I think.
Yeah, and I think they honestly believe it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, look what they did with Luke Skywalker, right? Like, even Mark Hamill, he coined the term Jake Skywalker. He was like, "This isn't Luke Skywalker."
Luke,
he would never give up and go into exile and just like not care about. He would never do this. He would never try and like contemplate murdering his nephew. Yeah. That's a different character. His name is Luke. His name is Jake Skywalker.
I saw that a long time ago.
So they do this with. I mean, they just did it with in the Mandalorian with Bo-Katan. Not to the extent, obviously, but they still did it. They made her all depressed and gloomy and crappy at the beginning of season 3, and they made her like lose her fleet and stuff. So they can have this character arc where she like returns as the hero, right? They want to tell their own story where they can make her the hero instead of like continuing the story that's already there before her that they had already done. So with like Luke, I mean, with Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, like I think you can make the argument that these people do make is that like Luke does kind of come back out of his exile, right? And he force projects onto the wherever that crate is or whatever it's called, that salt planet.
Crate, yep.
And he dupes Kylo Ren and like is able to like give them time in order to escape. So he comes back from the darkness that he was in, and that's like so they can give them their own arc. And it's like, well, Luke would have never done that in the first place, though. He would never have like have some other kind of obstacle for him to overcome. It doesn't have to be like him get like going to commit murder. Seriously. And that's something too. They always want to have them have these like character growths, right? Instead of like, you can't have a character like the Shadow anymore, who's like, he doesn't have character growth, right? He has relationship growth maybe with like Margot Lane, or he's overcoming a different type of villain who's challenging him in a different way. And I think that's why you have characters like Batman that stand the test of time, because he's not changing over time.
Yeah, right.
Like he's just solving different problems against different villains.
They established his change. He like his parents were murdered in front of him, and that changed him. And now we have Batman. And that's sometimes all you need. And the thing is also, I go to, and maybe I go to this too often, is that in long-term stories and long stories like this here, where even in the Lord of the Rings, where you have a central core of characters, often it's the characters that surround them that really make it excel. And so in the Lord of the Rings, right, you have the Fellowship, but then you throw in a Galadriel, and you throw in Faramir and Denethor, like these really engaging characters. And we've lost that. And so the shadowy character, like you go in Deep Space Nine. That's the one that I always go to. I don't know if you've watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine much.
I've watched some.
So
only the first season.
You've got kind of the good guys who are all good. You've got like Bashir and Sisko and even Worf and I don't know, Sisko's son, right? But then you have some conflicted characters that are like Garak and the Bajoran, Kira, Quark.
Kira, yeah.
And then you have just the straight up bad guys, which would be the Dominion and even Gul Dukat. But you have a cross section, and you don't have to like make every single character have a dark side. Like if you made Picard or Sisko have a dark side, people would have been like, wait, what? Like, why is this guy even in command in Starfleet? In the same way that when you have, you try to give Aragorn like they did, or Galadriel is the better example, like this little dark side, you're like, wait, what? This is not the Galadriel that one, we know, or two, we even want to root for anymore, because she doesn't know herself. And to give a 6,000-year-old character, or however old she is, at the point, 2,003, 6,000, 7,000, a character arc kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense in a one-season episode or a show right now. It just feels so forced.
Like just with Jackson's Lord of the Rings, Aragorn doesn't really have a lot of character growth, right? He's still the guy out there he's like, I'm fighting, like that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. The only character growth he has would be to be like, okay, I guess I'll be the king, which was different than what Tolkien wrote, because Jackson said we needed to give him something, which I understand that. And they did the same thing to Faramir, which was an absolute disaster. I hate Faramir in the movies. He's so much better in the books. I like good guys. I want to see that more, and we get that less.
And even Gandalf doesn't have character growth. He has like an ascension.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Here's the third article that promotes the Rings of Power, like in the.
Who's this?
This is
GameSpot.
Yeah. They're just saying, it's going to come alive in season 2 because it was dead in season 1. That's kind of, it's the unspoken truth that they kind of didn't mean to put in the title. It's like, oh, no. It is actually dead. Nobody really liked it. How much did it fall off? Like 70%, something like that? 66%?
Yeah, 60-something%.
Yeah, 67. Yeah,
something like that.
So anyway, they're going to say it's taking a different approach. It's more vibrant. It's more epic. It's got more power. It's more tactful. I don't know.
That was, if you remember when they first kind of, one of the, like, I guess Entertainment Weekly, the production, they were talking about like, Morpher Clark was like, oh, the production design is so amazing. You can like see all like the little individual seashells they like put on the homes of like Numenor and all this stuff. It looks like they're doing the same thing here.
Yeah. Yay. But Numenor looked.
There it is, 37%.
Is that what
people
oh yeah,
stayed
37%.
right
So 63% left the show.
Yeah.
Watch it. So yeah, 1/3 of people, pretty much a little more than 1/3, watched the whole thing the whole way through. And 1/3 of that 1/3 were people like you and me who kind of felt like they had to watch it rather than continuing on and on. It's kind of like Ted Lasso. Now it's like I just stopped. It's just so dumb in season 3.
Yeah, so like Rings of Power, I was only watching it so I could write about how terrible it was.
It was an income proposition. You're like, I have to do this, right? It's like this is like I write articles. This is how I make money, and yeah, I have to watch the show.
It's the same thing. Why I've been watching The Mandalorian, like because I would not be watching that. Like I thought that show was terrible from the very beginning in season 1. But I watch it so I can like actually know what's going on and keep up with it.
Yeah,
I can write about it.
I haven't even gotten into season 3. I just don't. Well, we don't have Disney Plus.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. Yeah, I'm going back. I've never actually watched the original Star Trek series, like the original, like all the way through. I've caught episodes here and there. I've just been a Next Generation and Beyond guy. So I'm gonna start watching through all those, and hopefully, like get something out of it. I've never disliked it very much. So we'll see.
I do still have access to Disney Plus, but I watch like when I get control, try and watch the old Zorro serials that they've got on there from like the 50s, which are pretty good.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, those are fun.
Zorro. I should get my kids to watch the Zorro movie with Anthony Hopkins and
the first one is literally a proto MCU film. It's got like the heroes like training and everything. It's very MCU.
Yeah. I should go back. It's been a long time.
Early MCU, like Phase 1 MCU, not new MCU stuff, which I have not watched any.
What's Phase 1 like Iron Man, like that Phase 1? When did Phase 2 start? Is that
after Avengers?
Okay. I never followed like where. I just know that are we in Phase 3, Phase 4, Phase 5?
Phase 5 now, I think. Phase 5 now.
All right. So yeah, Phase 4 was when it really started going downhill, right? That's
Phase 4 was after
Eternals and all that.
Endgame. Yeah.
Okay.
They had like decent stuff with Spider-Man, which came out right after Endgame, and then you got Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Thor: Love and Thunder, Wakanda Forever. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of those.
I haven't seen any of them.
I
didn't watch any Phase 4 stuff.
Yeah.
Except for the Spider-Man. I saw Spider-Man Far From Home. I haven't seen No Way Home.
Yeah, I did see Far From Home. That's the only one. But that's not even like, that's because it wasn't really Marvel. It was Sony with Marvel. And then they probably had a few more people into it. I don't know. We talked about Shelob earlier too. And I'm gonna switch us a little bit into something else. So we talked about young Shelob, and of course, I don't know how many of you who are listening remember the Shelob from Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, one of those two. That was Shelob in Shadows of War, the video game that came out, which mechanically was pretty good. I enjoyed that. This was just goofy. So they anthropomorphized Shelob when what's his face would talk to him. I can't even remember the character. Somebody help me. The main character. Not Celebrimbor. I don't. Yeah. And so they did that, right? They had, let's see, there's another one of her, like, ooh, sexy Shelob. Yeah. Yes. So we're gonna
I get that. She's like a Lilith type.
Yes.
I can understand that.
But what I don't know if you heard, I think was this your article? Let me see. Let me get it up here. Yeah, this is yours. This one.
Oh, yeah.
This is like a video game making questionable decisions once again with the Lord of the Rings Online. This is where I wish Michael was here because he's been playing Lord of the Rings Online with his kids actually for many years.
Right.
And I guess they added facial hair. Walk me through this. They added facial hair to any character now? You can just give any character a beard? Is that right?
So I'm not really sure. So Ryan wrote this one and I didn't edit it or write it, but
well, you're still responsible for it, man. It's your
I think it says right here, our latest update celebrates individuality with additional character customization options for the race of men that let players express themselves in new ways. We want to make as many players feel represented in the game as possible, and we are introducing new character creation options for your face, hair, and body. So it looks like it's just for human characters, according to their game notes.
Wait, can you?
So I don't even think they allow dwarves to do. I don't play this game. I'm not super familiar with it.
Yeah,
but it just looks like Tolkien Estate is just allowing all this degeneracy to happen now.
Well, I don't think for this here, since Tolkien Estate can't say anything about it either. I'll at least give.
Oh, they don't. Okay,
because the licenses for this were held by Tolkien Enterprises forever.
Oh, okay.
And so since like 1969, 70, 71, somewhere around there. And so whenever Tolkien sold it, he sold the licensing to like games and movies and everything, not except TV. So yeah, so they've had it, and then they sell it. And that new company, oh gosh, bought it from Tolkien Enterprises.
Middle Earth Enterprises.
Is it now Middle Earth Enterprises? Yeah, and then they're going to do tons of stuff with it now.
They're who Warner Brothers did the new deal with for the new movies.
Right.
That they announced, which we don't know if they're like remakes or if they're like, I don't think they're remakes because the guy who owns the Middle Earth Enterprises company, like the president of that company, was talking about how there's like a lot of stuff we haven't explored in Tolkien's writings, which to me means they're going to do other stories.
Yeah.
Although I know some people think it's going to be a remake. They did announce that they're doing the Harry Potter remake as a TV show. So that's definitely a possibility to remake the movies.
The difference with that though is that they're getting J.K. Rowling involved in the TV show as an executive producer, so she will have some, ability to actually direct it, like to actually push it in the direction that she wants. Whereas there's nobody like that. Like you can't say J.R. Tolkien will ever be involved, or Christopher Tolkien for that matter, will ever be involved in anything again. And it's a sad day when they do remake these Lord of the Rings, because can you imagine?
I don't know. Having Rowling involved might not be the greatest thing. I mean, she's already changed her characters. She made Dumbledore a homosexual, and Hermione's They did a stage play where it's like an older Hermione, and they have a black actress playing her.
Oh, that's not. You're not talking about Cleopatra from Netflix, right? That's not.
No, they race swapped. They race swapped Hermione on like a London stage play a couple years ago.
All right.
So she's already made changes to her own stories.
Yeah. I hate the idea that you can go in after the fact. It's like, well, what I meant to say. And if you read between the lines, the really, really tight lines that you can't really see at all, this is what I meant this character to be.
It makes Dumbledore super creepy.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah,
He's like a groomer.
Dude, if they lean into that in the show, just not. We're not going there. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's like I mentioned earlier, season 3 of Ted Lasso. I don't know if anybody in the chat actually watches it, but it's
I watched some of the first season.
So far off the rails into a non-com. Each episode is like an hour long. Which for a sitcom,
that's a lot different than the first season. It was a lot shorter.
There is almost no humor in it, and everybody's gay.
They turned it into a drama.
They turned it into they're Yellowstoning it. Trying to give everybody some motivations, and the relationships are really difficult. And what's her face?
It's Game of Thrones then, because that's all Yellowstone is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yellowstone is Game of Thrones in Montana.
But it's so friggin' boring. I literally went in the middle of an episode. I just stopped. I'm like, I'm done. Like I can't continue. Maybe I'll put it on at some point, because you do like the characters and they do a good job, but then they're just ruining all the characters by it's become a morality play. And so they have a whole thing about illegal immigration now in it, and they have a whole thing about bisexuality in it. And then what else? I'm sure I'm missing something. Oh, and they have a whole thing about how the rich white guy is cheating on his wife the entire time, which, okay, he was that, but then he's trying to push it on everybody. It's just like, oh man, enough with the morality, enough with pushing these messages onto us, because it's done so poorly. It's like they're preaching at us. It's like going to a homily, right? It's like it doesn't really.
And I feel like you can get drama from somewhere. If you're trying to turn it into a drama, there's lots of room for a drama and managing a sports team, especially like a soccer team over there.
I know
football or whatever. And the drama with the managers with the players, if you want to do that, I'm sure there could be stuff between players. I mean, there's all kinds of drama that you could probably look into with that stuff. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah,
or shouldn't be that hard.
No, and they. I mean, honestly, the first season I really enjoyed. It was like a breath of fresh air. I've never seen comedy quite like that. It was a new premise. It wasn't like a cop buddy show. It wasn't some sort of medical drama where it's super easy to create conflict. it was just a well written, like kind of off the wall kind of show, and I enjoyed it. And then season 2 was
bringing
like,
in an American football coach to coach soccer.
Yeah, who had no idea, and so like all of us in America could totally relate to it because we have no idea what's going on in soccer anyway. You're like, offsides, isn't that when you go outside the white lines? Like, I don't understand this whole offside. But yeah, and then in the third season, they also like every character has a relationship now, and so they literally split off the entire show into like, here's 15 minutes with this character, and then we're gonna spend 5 minutes with this other character, and then we're gonna go back to this other character, and so nothing is melding together and meshing because everybody is just in their own world. And has their own relationships, and nobody's relationships are intertwining much anymore. So it just got super boring. And John and I each have many children, so we're always dealing with that around us.
Yeah. My daughter's nap ended quite early.
That's all good. Live stream is live, and that's what makes it fun. Yeah. So anyway, hey, but one of the talking about all this writer stuff, like we were talking about how. Writing sucks. And now we have the writer's strike. And you being more, seeing what's going on, what does that mean for Hollywood, for other things that are being made outside of Hollywood? Like, how much does this affect new shows?
So it's a little hard to know. I mean, I just did a story on Andor where one of the strikers was really upset that Tony Gilroy, who's the creator, producer, showrunner of the Andor show, the Star Wars show, is still kind of like seemingly working on the show, did a whole thing calling him a scab and everything. And then he had to issue a statement to the Hollywood Reporter saying, like, I quit back on May 1st when the strike ended, and I haven't really been doing anything. But you've got statements, like you've got legal like letters, or I don't know if they're legal letters, but they're letters coming from like the lawyers or emails from like Disney lawyers saying like, you are still required to do your show running duty. We're not shutting down. Please continue with production on some of these shows. So I guess it probably just depends on a lot with how the studio handles it, whether or not they already had scripts written and they plan not on changing them. I'm of the opinion that I hope they continue to strike and we don't get it just like shuts down.
Yeah, right.
So it's not like we are wanting for like new content, right? There's like you're talking about you're watching the old new Star Trek stuff. I'm watching the old Zorro stuff. There's plenty of old stuff out there that you can watch and get your hands on. But as far as like Hollywood goes, I mean, it looks like they're going to be striking at least until through the summer.
Wow, well, that's good.
Is what I'm hearing on. I think most people are saying like August or something like that. Maybe they'll come to it, they'll hammer it out, but they've got a lot of demands. One of the demands is they want to regulate AI, but I don't think the studio. I just did a video. Paul Chateau, who's a former Canadian Broadcasting Company executive, he's got his YouTube channel called I think it's called Call Me Chateau, and he basically was like, "I'm not. If I was a studio executive now, there's absolutely no way I would agree to that. Like, why would I not use AI? Like, it's just." If I'm looking, if I'm thinking of doing some kind of historical period piece, why wouldn't I not ask like this really smart advanced computer to give me like some historical data on this that it has pulled from the internet that I don't need to have someone going and spending multiple weeks researching it. I can just have the Chat GPT do it, and then we can have a head writer or something kind of work, like massage it out and get something really good on it. And he pointed out to how terrible most modern entertainment is, especially genre entertainment. Rings of Power is one he pointed out, as we talk about here. And it's just terrible. You could probably get ChatGPT or whatever AI you want to use could probably hammer out a script better than the people at Rings of Power.
You're right, actually.
So because he actually said he instructed ChatGPT to write a story about Gollum befriending Frodo, and he said that in the script that Gollum like basically tries to trick Frodo. He's like, "I'll be your friend if you give me back my precious," or something like that. He's like the AI like understands the lore better than
so funny.
better than
the writers themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and I don't know how many months ago, probably 2 or 3 months ago, 3 months ago probably, we do something that just sort of like a little off-kilter thing we might do at the beginning of our podcast called All That Is Gold, which is a riff off All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter. So I did a thing where I used ChatGPT to generate just phrases that were similar to what Tolkien wrote, and I wanted them to figure out. So what I did is I found a fan fiction piece, like a phrase, the thing that was used, and then I had ChatGPT generate something similar to it, and I had Dan and Michael try to figure out which one was AI generated and which one was actually written by a human being. And they got 2 out of 3 right. One of them, they were like, no, that sounds too good. And that was the AI one where they were like, that actually did a better job than the...
sounds too good, yeah.
It's like it kind of understood like how to say this thing about love. I don't remember exactly what they said, but they got 2 out of 3 right. So, hey, the AI only needs to get 66% better to control all of us. And honestly, the other thing...
It's going to get better. It's going to improve.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's gonna get crazy. The other thing that... thankfully, AI can't do live streams yet. So if you want to continue seeing live, having ChatGPT and Google's AI talk to each other.
They already have people doing the with the animated avatars and stuff.
Oh
like that.
yeah,
and I feel like that you could do that. I mean, it already can mimic like presidential candidates and stuff like that. You can mimics voices like really well.
Yeah.
So
having thoughtful conversation is still outside of its realm of possibility. Like this kind of conversation that we're having here, or like 6 of us talking together, like that sort of stuff.
It'll never be able to do that because it's a machine.
Yeah, it can never do the right thing. And actually, here's the one thing I did use AI for: brainstorming. Like, give me a list. So when I was trying to come up with a name for the podcast, because I'm like, I need something like that's kind of Tolkien-ish, or for the podcast, for the live stream, I was like, I need something Tolkien-ish. I need something that has like the word Fridays in it, because I like the idea that easily you can figure out what it is. And eventually, it came up with like Fellowship Fridays, and I was like, oh, hey, that's amazing. But it took me like 20 minutes. But it's better than honestly, it was faster than like getting like 5 other people together and trying brainstorming something.
Yeah,
because it just spits things out to you, and it can tell it exactly what you want. Oh. Ron's asking, what am I drinking? Dude, this is just Diet Pepsi. That's all. I'm sorry. It looks darker and like more interesting, but no, it's just melted ice in there.
I had lemon lime Gatorade. I finished that, and then I just have water in my cup.
Yeah. The Writers Guild moves on. Does it affect things that happen outside of the U.S. at all? Is it just the U.S.? So if there are things being produced in Europe or India or Japan or Indonesia, like wherever, Australia.
So I know in Japan, a lot of the anime writers are so like, even if they're doing stuff with like Netflix and Disney or whatever, they're still going. They're not part of the Writers Guild of America because it's only the Writers Guild of America that's striking. But I do think that does affect, like, so Andor is in like, I think they film in the UK, so that is affecting some stuff in the UK. Obviously, if there's U.S. production that's filming overseas, I would think that would affect that as well. I'm not sure that it affects the stuff that Netflix brings in from like Germany or France, or the stuff. I think they have some stuff from some of the Nordic countries now too. I think it was like a Danish war film from World War II about one of the first battles. It's actually really good. So I don't think it's affecting them per se, because they probably have their own unions over there.
Yeah,
their own deals and everything like that. But I think it's mainly just the Writers Guild of America, East and West, that are striking. But again, like, those are the people that are mainly creating this new stuff for like Disney Plus, Netflix, like Max, I guess, because they call themselves Max now instead of HBO Max, and whatever, Paramount Plus, and Peacock is the other one, right? So
well,
as from a viewer's perspective, like, keep striking. Like,
I think also from Bob Iger's perspective, he's like, oh, we're cutting back on what we're doing. We're not going to be doing as many scripted shows anymore. So he's kind of like, well, keep striking. Like, we just won't have to pay for those shows right now. Yeah,
I get that, but at the same time, like, at the same time, they're probably like, man, we can't push our message on more people. I'm really cynical.
We've lost our pulpit.
Yeah.
So that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I mean, here's the other thing though. I don't know. Okay. So I'm taking sort of the positive perspective, and I'm thinking, is somebody there getting it a little bit that, like, people don't want bland, boring, preachy TV? Because you look at what has been successful. I mean, you look at just Picard. Picard went back into the top 10 of streaming minutes. Went to like the 8th or 9th episode, because it it doesn't do what the first 2 seasons did, which is just sort of preach at you the entire time and throw out morality plays. And so I'm hoping some people are going to get it, but it's going to take a long time. Oh yeah, Super Mario Brothers, absolutely. I saw that, dude. We did not see the Little Mermaid trailer in front of it. I was so excited that they didn't show it at all. I was like, I don't want my kids to see that.
Oh, you would have been like,
know it's out there.
Nightmares of Sebastian and Flounder looking like
that is the
these
worst.
Like desaturated fish
in an empty ocean. Like I go snorkeling and like I could go snorkeling in like some dim Atlantic seashore and I'd see more life there than I would in Disney's Little Mermaid.
I just
crazy.
taken a trip to the Baltimore Aquarium, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, and those fish are extremely colorful and vibrant and and you see this Little Mermaid trailer and it's like, why is Flounder like this muted yellow color? He looks like emaciated and like what is wrong with this fish?
What have they done? What have they done for Sebastian? Like they're taking, too human, too real is a thing, and it's just way too real. Like the singing crab that looks 100% like as if he could walk out of the coral shelf of Australia, right? It's like, no, you can't do that. That looks horrible. Like, no way.
This looks creepy.
Let's see. Serial wrote, there is an effect here in Europe. You hear people sigh in relief that for a while. It's being written. Okay.
True.
Yes. Yes, that is very true.
Lots of us are sighing here too in America.
Yeah. I'm hoping
we're cheering them on. We're cheering the strikers on.
Go.
Striking. Go.
I will. This is the one time I won't break a strike line, and I will join you if I was in Hollywood on the streets, like holding your signs. We want more money. In fact, I want all the money. I would be like, please give me more. Oh man, yeah. I hope the Super Mario films, like, I hope it'll help the War of the Rohirrim. Like, thinking of like the one sort of movie that's coming up that they will listen and see. Like, don't throw messages into there. We don't need that. That's not what anybody wants from Tolkien's world. But I'm still afraid.
Yeah, like reading the actual story, like there isn't like it's an action.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's like
don't
there
put it
isn't
past
even,
them.
Like Tolkien doesn't even have any like messaging in there or anything like that. Like I know he's like completely against allegory or anything like that, but it's hard for me to even see any of like his Catholicism coming through in that story, because the guy is like just, he's vengeful. I mean, I guess there's maybe with the grief that he deals with and how you deal with grief in different ways, but
you know what it'd be? It's like, he's secretly gay. He's got some sort of secret life somewhere that we don't know, and they'll have to hint at it.
That with the sons.
Yeah, it's like what Disney did with
not with the main guy. He's clearly got like 4 or 5 sons, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Good point there. But they'll do what Disney did, which is they'll throw in, hey, we just have these characters in the background, and like, hey, we just said this one phrase, and if you thought about it the right way, you could actually like think of it in these terms that we want you to think of it in. So I'm really hoping they don't do that. I think it's pretty much done at this point. I know they've been animating it for a long time now.
If they stay true to what he wrote, I mean, it could be fantastic, because this is it. That story is excellent. It is an excellent, just fun action adventure with some palace intrigue, kind of overlaying it with obviously like why it occurs, right? why that battle occurs, because he smashes the dude's head.
Right. Well, and we get to see how Helm's Deep, and we get like Yeah. I'm hoping it'll be good. It's funny. It'll be I think Miranda Eowyn is telling the story or something like that. Yeah. So she's
supposed to be narrating, at least for a little bit of it.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of like
I can see her like at like I can see her at like a campfire or like in front of a fireplace telling kids or something like that the story of Helm Hammerhand, right?
Yeah. It would be good. It'll probably be better than what Warner Brothers puts out, because there's no desire to put out anything great anymore.
So this is Warner Brothers production, though.
It is? Oh.
Yeah. This one is. It's Warner Brothers Animation is doing it. The guy who runs the anime segment of Cartoon Network is like the main producer of it. And he said that he didn't like Rings of Power, but he's also like a Hollywood guy and thinks like
Joseph Chow. Does that sound right?
No. It's Jason something.
Oh. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia entry.
Oh, I think his name is Jason.
Yeah, there's the director Jeffrey Addis is the writer. Anyway,
the director is Kenji Kamiyama.
Yeah, Like I said, anime has never been my thing. I've never been all in on that. I don't really care.
There's some good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to me, it's just anime is animation created in Japan, right? It's not.
Yeah.
Like obviously they have their own style, artistic style and stuff like that, but there's also different artistic styles too. So
that's true.
It's just the Japanese animation medium. Like, are there any? Have you ever watched any kind of like Western animation?
Western, as in
like besides like cartoons,
give me an example.
Children's cartoons. Like, have you watched? Netflix has a show called Love, Death, Robots.
I have watched the first season. Okay. I think I don't have Netflix anymore, but I think I watched the first season of Love, Death, Robots. There was some. Yeah, I enjoyed some of that. That is true. Okay. Yes, there was. Yeah. Here's the thing. I guess and I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I just don't take it as seriously, so it never hits as hard for me. Like my mental block of like, yeah, it's just a cartoon, right? It's. I know it's a very like lame adult thing to say, but it feels like, it's just a cartoon. Who cares? So kind of like a video game. Like a video game, it's just a video game. Who really cares if it's like great or bad or like they mess up Shelob? It's not a huge deal, but we'll see. Yeah, but I maybe this will change my mind. Maybe I will jump into this and be like, dude, this was amazing, and I hope so, because hope springs eternal.
It does.
And Ring Bearer 1420 mentioned Princess Mononoke, and I've never seen that either, but I probably should.
That's what like a lot of people recommend as like a really good animation.
Yeah.
Coming out of Japan from Studio Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli, that's right. That was like 20 years ago. Mia. Who directed it? Hold on.
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any Mobile Suit Gundam?
Nope. Like I'm telling you, man, I just don't watch cartoons.
Well, so I mean, yeah, no, and yeah, maybe
maybe I just should.
You don't like the medium.
I was I was part of a group, and Brandon, who works at Babylon Bee, he was trying to get me to watch like some awesome something on Amazon Prime, I think it was, that was animated, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Oh, Vinland Saga, maybe. Dude, I can't remember, but I was like, yeah, all right, I'll give it a try, and then I totally forgot about it, never did, because it just doesn't matter to me. I feel like the bigger part might be the language barrier too, because you got to either pick, you're going to listen to a dub or you're going to listen to a subtitle.
Yeah, I
usually listen to subtitles because
absolutely
I usually don't like the dub version.
100%.
But animation's a little bit different. There's absolutely no way I'm listening to a dub version of a live action because it's just awful. You can see like the people talking, whereas like animation, like it's easier. It works a little bit better. But yeah, I have high hopes for this War of the Rohirrim film, but again, it's also like it's still 2023.
Yeah. No, I know. Who's going to be involved in it? That's why I think did I mention it earlier? I can't remember because I've had so many discussions lately. Is that the Daily Wire is doing Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead, which in our membership group we're reading through that. We just had our first like book club last night where we got together, talked a little bit about what we thought about it, which you can get to by going to thewondercut.com/members. And it was good, and that's where let's see if somebody that's not writers that aren't on strike, actors that aren't part of a union, editors and effects people and everything like who are working outside of the industry, if they've got a relatively solid budget, can they create something that is that's fantastical, but and not sci-fi, but it's fantasy, but written in historical fantasy in a way that is engaging and loved by a lot of people. The tough part is it's going to be behind Daily Wire's paywall, so how many people will really be able to see it? But I'm hoping for that one too. I hope that turns into something great. That would be really nice. But will it be as great as the new Ray movie coming out?
Wait, you think that movie's coming out?
Oh, touche. What Star Wars movie has? Oh, that is one long list of unhappy closings for them. Like nothing has been done, right?
Where's Rian Johnson's trilogy?
Where's the dudes from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, D&D, Dave and Dan.
And then
they moved on.
Taika Waititi, right?
Yeah, they didn't even talk about that at Star Wars Celebration. The Patty Jenkins
Rogue
Squadron movie.
Rogue Squadron, yeah.
I did see something. I didn't cover this, but so Empire, I guess, is having a big Star Wars magazine. They're like physical magazine, Empire magazine. And I guess Kennedy was like talking about all of these projects. She's like, "Oh, they're still in development. We're still working on them. We just haven't like Ryan Johnson is such a busy guy now. It's really hard to like get him in and get it away. But we still have that on our docket." And it's like, stop lying. Like, come on, be honest.
Yeah, with what Iger said, he's like, we're cutting back. It's like, no, you're not going to be throwing that much money at these things. And this goes to like,
apparently they threw a ton of money at the Acolyte though.
You mean
that's what the actresses are saying?
That right there.
Yeah,
that great article about.
Oh, did I jump by you? You already had this ready to go.
I actually did. I was just like thinking about the Acolyte when you mentioned like when you were talking about Star Wars like closing things. I'm like, oh, this is the one that they're going to go forward with because it matches the message that they must impart on all of us because they're so much better and smarter than us. Because they know that. Here's the thing. We talked about this in our podcast too. Is that fantasy is great because and the way
I was listening to this. I'll listen to this clip.
Yeah, where they're faithless. Where when you take real life and you dip it in fantasy, that makes life even better. But what they're doing is they're taking life and they're taking fantasy and dipping it in real life. And we hate that. We don't want our real life invading the fantasy and the stories that we love. And that's all that these writers know how to do.
It's what Tolkien says. You are now looking at the you're automatically out of the story and you're looking at like an aborted product or the aborted story already. I mean, that's literally, and even if you try and suspend your disbelief, you still know that that's what you're doing like mentally. And so you already know that it's like, you're like trying to trick your own mind into like thinking that it's, you can like grind through it and you're like, no, this stuff still sucks.
It's who wants to watch Star Wars to find out what's going on for all of us right now? I want to watch.
No one I know.
I want to watch Star
Wars.
People
that are creating this crap.
Yeah. Because this is their religion. This is their message. This is the only way that they can preach to us. They don't have a pulpit. They don't have a faith. Right? They don't have anything that we can believe in except being a fan of Star Wars. So, which nobody is anymore, unless like you've been browbeaten into submission by watching these shows, and you have the inability to figure out what's tasteful and what's not anymore. But for this show, it just looks so. Is Chewbacca in it? Because isn't this the guy who played Chewbacca?
Yes. Yeah. But he's not. It's not Chewbacca. He's playing a Wookiee Jedi.
This is not like
everyone's a Jedi now. It's not about like
thanks Ryan Johnson
discipline. Everyone's a Jedi.
This is. I hope this stuff fails. I hope it'll be interesting because didn't Disney say that they're going to actually take stuff off of the platform too? They're not just going to not make stuff; they're actually going to remove things from the platform.
Yeah, so they already have. Like one of the things we actually used to watch was Sound of Music, and they took that off like last month, I think, in April. Which is kind of so it's like, all right, well, we'll just go buy the Blu-ray, and so we don't need to even like log into Disney Plus anymore. Thanks. But yeah, no, Iger and Christine McCarthy, their CFO over there, they both confirmed that they will be removing content from the Disney Plus platform.
Yeah,
that is correct.
And can they remove She-Hulk?
Just earlier this week. I doubt it's gonna be older stuff. Is my guess.
The stuff that people actually want to watch a little bit.
I'm guessing that that's probably also going to be part of a new strategy moving forward, which is their old strategy. Because they literally decided the phrase my mom always told me was don't cut your nose off to spite your face. But that's literally what Disney did when they launched Disney Plus, because they took all of their stuff that they were licensing to Netflix and to all these other streaming services and they put them all on Disney Plus, and now they lost all of that revenue. And they lost all the money. So I think they're going to go back to that. So they're pulling all this stuff off to get it ready to go out to other platforms.
I could see them doing like all the Fox stuff. Like X-Files doesn't belong on Disney Plus. It just feels wrong. Like throw it on Netflix or throw it on Amazon Prime or something.
Well, they're going to combine. They're actually creating a combined app now for Disney Plus and Hulu. Oh, yeah. So it'll have all that stuff. It'll have everything on there.
Yeah. I didn't realize that the Acolyte told us that, or whoever, Leslie Headland. Is she the director, the showrunner?
Yes.
The writer. They're going to tell this story. How original! Tell the story from the perspective of the villains, which is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Unbelievable.
And the story doesn't even make any sense from like a continuity perspective, but that's par for the course, right, with Star Wars now, because
the continuity doesn't matter.
Because the whole pitch for this is apparently showing how the Sith like infiltrate the Jedi or something like that and bring about their downfall. And it's like, George showed us that in the prequels. Thanks. Don't need to watch it again.
Yeah, right. It's because they probably haven't watched the prequels. Because who was it? Oh, it was the former Picard writers. I think they were like, yeah, we haven't really watched a ton of those episodes, so we don't really know. Or the She-Hulk writers, like, yeah, we don't really know much about She-Hulk other than these couple comics that we looked at. Like, no, they don't actually care because they think, that's artistic to go off and do your own thing rather than to lean into what has already been proven to be good and liked, loved, enjoyed.
The She-Hulk writers admitted that they wrote that show in spite of like old Marvel fans. Like they admitted that they wrote it to spite them. That's why they included all the jokes to insult them. The jokes.
Wow. Well, we'll see if things change. That's always my hope. I'm gonna throw it out.
Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. I know. And this goes to the question that we did we ask you? I think we asked you. Asked you this year's like, what's the one thing we always ask this of everybody we interview? What's the one thing that we can do in order to? I don't have the question up. In order to bring back good, creative, solid, wholesome writing and fantasy stories again, right? What's the one thing that we can do? I don't have that question in front of me, but
I don't think I answered that when you did interview me. I don't remember that question.
Oh,
maybe I did.
I think you did. But anyway, I mean, there are a lot of things that need to happen. It's like there's not just one thing, but what is one thing that we can do? So maybe it's a wide open like scope of a question. But what like for me, it's always like we've got to get people just one thing at a young age, get them to read good things. And so, for instance, we are taking our kids out of school. Once my kids were, he's in 7th grade, he was given in his English language arts class, was given Al Gore's 2007 speech to the United Nations on climate change to read. And I was
in public school?
Public school, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we live in Williamson County, Tennessee, which is known for one being a good school system and two for not being very left. But of course, it's teachers, and so the further any teachers that you get, generally, it's at least probably an 80-20 proposition that they won't be anywhere near the right side of the spectrum.
I mean, I sat in classrooms with these people that said they wanted to become teachers, and I was just like, "You should not be a teacher. Like, I don't want you teaching my kids."
You remember the maxim that we all need to live by: those who can do, those who can't teach. But anyway, so they did that, and that was the final straw for me to be like, nah, I'm taking my kids out of school. Like, I can teach them better just by having them read good things and then having them write me reports about it. And so we're figuring it out. We have 4 kids. But I
was reading about a family that literally only does 2 hours of instruction a day, and the rest is like play and like work on the farm.
Well, the wasted time, like they do, like they're waiting for their kids to finish. They've got time in the halls. They've got lunch that takes forever. They've got the bus ride. They've got the homeroom before. Like, there's probably half the day is at least wasted at school.
Oh, it's true. I mean, just from my own experience, I remember. So I went to Catholic school from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then I switched to public high school. And I was in some kind of like world history class, and I took like the quiz. I finished it within like 5 minutes because it was stuff I had learned. Like I had already like basically taken the class in my middle school, and I just like started talking to the people next to me because I just want to sit there for the rest of the period and just sit there in like silence. I'm like a 14-year-old kid, right? Like I'm a boy. I don't want to just be confined to this chair. And then my teacher kicked me out of the classroom and told me I was China and had to go sit in another room somewhere. But, no, that's definitely a problem.
It's they just need to read. Right? We talked about in our podcast too. Like, people don't read anymore. People don't, like, especially these writers. They've never read anything great. They've never read anything that like speaks to the heart, the soul. And so they throw these things like we had in that clip, like faith. Like they throw faith in there as if that means something when they haven't established that anybody has any faith in anything at this point. They're called the faithful, but for what reason?
I mean, for any, like, I know you're mainly talking about, like, that's the whole problem with Luke Skywalker. That's the whole problem, or Jake Skywalker, right? Like, this guy like totally believes in the Jedi. After Return of the Jedi, like he is a true believer. He has proven himself. He actually shows that what like Obi-Wan truly wanted him to do was maybe not the actual like right course, because he confronts obviously Vader, but he also shows forgiveness, mercy, and leads a new path forward. And then to have him like, oh, he's gonna like, he's having bad dreams and he's gonna go kill his nephew. Like, come on, like, absolutely not. He wouldn't do that. A person like Luke Skywalker isn't doing that. A character like Luke Skywalker's not doing that. So yeah, that's a huge problem. And again, like that's why that was my biggest issue with Rings of Power, was that first episode where you have that stupid, like, you need to touch evil to like know it.
Oh, touch the darkness to know the light type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like being juxtaposed with her literally touching this gate that's supposedly like seemingly opening up to Valinor, and it's like, what is happening here?
Yeah, that seemed so weird. Like, they threw that in there because they thought it was cool, not because there was actually any good reasoning for that, right?
I guess it wasn't. I didn't think it was cool.
It didn't make, no. They thought it was cool because they have no clue what they're actually doing, because they've never read anything good to actually do. I mean, I would highly doubt that any of them read beyond maybe the Akalabeth. They probably read through it once. They're like, we got it. I totally know what's going on. We're going to do this. We got the appendices. We got the Akalabeth, and now we're just going to throw ourselves into it.
They didn't even read. They didn't even read the Akalabeth clearly, because
they're giving them too much credit.
Fundamentally didn't understand the Numenorians'
I know,
like, desire to become immortal.
So bad.
And they also don't understand how pride leads to the fall. Like,
no. Well, pride is a good thing. Remember,
the
entire month of June. That's what we get.
The crazy thing is that Tolkien has, like, Christopher Tolkien obviously put that in the Silmarillion. Tolkien had wrote it, but he has an entire letter explaining like what it is. What's going on? He like explains all the themes and everything in the letter. It's like, did you not read that either? He like tells you what it's supposed to be about.
Maybe we're giving them too much credit. They probably did read it and we're like, nah, he's not right. We know better. We're 70 years older than he'd be now. So, that was 70 years ago. Why would we ever believe anything that a man, a cis hetero white male from England in the 1950s would have said? We know better. We graduated from California State University, Northridge. It was awesome. I've got a degree. What did he have? Oxford.
But that conversation you guys had about the Faithless was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you can check that out. It's on our channel, which you can get to by clicking on the One Ring or going to theonering.com/YouTube. That'll work too. All right. Well, I got an email from John. John had his work invade on what's really important in life, which are things like this. John Carswell from the Tolkien Road. So he was unable to make it. Next week, we've got a lot more people. So hopefully, thank you for those of you who stuck with us this day. It was a little unexpected. Last week was tough to get it. We're trying to increase the stable of people because I don't want it to just be me and John all the time. John's got to do other things too. So I can see
like
that.
This though. This is fun on Fridays.
Yeah, Fridays. It's a nice way to shut it down. And I've got a day job, and apparently I have to do more work for that now too. So anyway, but next week we've got I think a full stable of people. I think we'll be back, and we'll throw more things at that. Thank you for joining us. If you want more, if you want to get our extended podcast and things like that, you can go to theonering.com/members and become a member there. It's $4 a month. We don't really do. I'm going to just get rid of the YouTube membership. It's just more to worry about. So if you want to do anything, you get theonering.com/member and get it through there. You can get access to all of our extended podcasts, which are like 20, 30 minutes longer. Our Discord channel, and we're putting up a shop, and we'll have coupons for that too. John, thanks for joining me. John, where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh yeah, bountyintocomics.com. We're already putting up articles over there. We're on YouTube. Bounty into Comics, can find us on YouTube. Obviously, social media everywhere. Bounty into Comics usually can find that. And then if you're interested, I have a sports site where I mainly cover NASCAR stuff, but we got some other writers that do some other topics as well. So that's bountyintosports.com, and you can find that on bountyintocomics.com. If Jonathan scrolls up here, there's the sports tab right there.
Sorry.
The website.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Sports
that's
tab,
the
mobile site. That's weird. What? That's not mobile. I just zoomed way in because it's a 4K monitor.
That's okay. So okay, I was like, that's just your monitor then. Okay, that works. No. I was like, why does it look like it's a mobile? Well, the mobile, but the mobile version, I think, just has each yeah. So that's our sports site. We cover a lot of sports going on there too, and I usually do a lot of the NASCAR motorsports stuff. NASCAR. Lots of drama happening within sports. I like more of the short track stuff. So I like they have the NASCAR Whelen modified tour. I like to watch that, and then there's a Smart modified tour, which is more in like the southeast, but North Carolina, Virginia, area where they race a lot there.
Yeah.
Bowman Gray in North Carolina is where they're racing now. The Smart Tour actually works around the Bowman Gray schedule, because Bowman Gray literally races at like a university around a university football field, so they only can race during the summer because then the football team comes in and takes over. So they work around that. They work around.
I've never
their
heard
schedule.
of like vehicles sharing a space with a football team. That's pretty nuts.
It's like the track. It's like instead of like having like a track around
and field around it,
like,
they actually
have a track,
like,
but instead of it's a racetrack. Yeah, it's a paved racetrack around the football field.
Wow.
And
it's
it's
both at the same time. It'd be
wild.
like super dangerous. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, just don't do that because these guys down at they call it the Madhouse, and it is aptly named because these guys their tempers can flare, and they like to chase each other through the football field sometimes with
So
their cars.
awesome.
So
I didn't realize
it can get wild down there. It can get wild down there.
All right. So boundingintosports.com,
that's the racing that I like.
That's the racing. Yeah. I've never been into racing. I'm still just beholden to the NFL. That's pretty much the only sports that I care about. So maybe I'll
they got the
anime.
They got
and
Nashville
short track
Fairgrounds
racing.
there.
I know. I need to get out more. Hey, now that I'm homeschooling, I'm going to be like, guys, we're going to be doing way more. I work from home and we're homeschooling. Like this is like, I've told them, like, if we want to do anything, now's the time in life. You're not old enough where I can't boss you around yet. And you're young enough where we can still teach you the things. So let's do this for a while. Let's see what it works out. So anyway, John, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thank you for joining me. And next week, if you can make it, of course, you're always welcome. Same time next week, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. What is that? Noon Pacific. I said Central. Nobody ever says Central, but that's because I live in Central. So live with it, people. All right. We'll see you guys next week.